Okay. Can see the attendees are ramping up, so just give it one more second before we start. Okay. So, welcome everybody. I can see the numbers are just going up. Hopefully joining us from Megan's session with Lou. I know that we're going to have a tough act to follow on that one, and we did have to leave a little bit early to get in for that session. So, hoping those people can move over quite quickly. And everybody is, yeah, coming through. Okay, great. So Anna Gee, as I've been navigating my own learning journey, particularly when it comes to being AI fluent, I really value conversations where we're talking about the what and sorry, the how and not just the what. So I'm really hoping today, as we go through this conversation, we can give the attendees and the audience a real practical look at how to put skills-based hiring into practice. And I definitely think going into this new world of work, this AI first, AI fluent world of work, I think that's really important. So today I am Penny. I am the head of customer success at TestGorilla. And today is a conversation with one of our customers, Catawiki. And we have Guy and Anna who are joining us to really talk about what they've been doing and how they've been doing it. So I think you guys have been using the platform since 2023. So well versed in how it works and how you've integrated it into your daily hiring flow. But Guy, when we were planning this session, I really like your story because actually, when you first experienced Test Gorilla, it was as a candidate, and now you're using it from a customer or employer side. Are you able to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about that journey?
No, yeah, no, thank you so much for the introduction, Penny. And yeah, excited to be here. Excited to be talking to this audience. I myself, I've been working now with Catawiki for almost 2 years. But beforehand, I was a talent acquisition lead at a small fintech startup. And I remember at the time that I was incumbent of looking for a tool for us to evaluate candidates, similar to TestGorilla. At the time, I didn't know TestGorilla, right? And I remember that we went through a few tools, we tested them, we evaluated them. There was a few concepts that we had in mind, and we ended up choosing a tool. And then a few months later, in a hiring process, I had applied or something like that. They sent me the test gorilla, right? And I use it as a candidate myself. And I think that was when I first got introduced to the tool, and I got quite excited. I think it was really easy to use. The user experience, the design, everything was quite nice, and I really enjoyed it. And I really liked the testing itself. So I remember I bookmarked it in my personal email, and I said like, someday I have to, in the future I have to try to use this as a customer. And then when I joined Catawiki, luckily they had already implemented it. So that was how I got introduced into it. So from the candidate side.
Nice, yeah. It was the same for me when I was joining Tescarilla. That was the first time I'd used it, but actually I loved a bit of the validation on some of my skills, especially when I was in that 98th percentile. Thank you, Guy. And Anna, it's really great to have you here too, because you really are using the platform on a day-to-day basis
Yeah.
and in anger. So it'd be really helpful for you to share a little bit more about your role. I know you're using it for particularly the customer services role, and really interested to hear who you are and why you use TestGorilla for those kind of high volume positions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Penny, and to the whole TestGorilla team. It's great to be here. And yeah, I'm fairly new to TestGorilla. The first time I used it was actually within Catawiki. Because at Catawiki, I oversee the hiring process for customer service, as you mentioned, which is a critical touch point between buyers and sellers in the platform. And since these roles are of high impact, they're also high volume and business critical, I would say. So for customer service positions specifically, we often try to hire in a scale and across multiple language markets as well. And with high volume roles, CV screening alone is not enough. So we always need to try and test a few other assessments that might help. And I think with TestGorilla specifically, we were able to do that, not only to language proficiency assessments, communication skills, customer orientation skills as well. And I think we want a test that is also able to be balanced in both speed, how intuitive it is, but also keeping quality. So since this is a so critical position within Catawiki, we wanted to make sure that we use the best one, and that's how TestGorilla came to be as well. So I'm fairly new, but the opportunity that I've had to be in contact with it, it's actually been a really positive experience.
Amazing. Thanks, Anna. And I think that point about volume, I think is only getting more and more prevalent in this sort of market. I know when I'm going through my own hiring, the volume of within 10 hours, you can have thousands and thousands of candidates on one role. And how do you actually approach that is a challenge for us all. So thanks, Anna, and great to have you here. So I want to take us back a little bit actually and Guy, I'm going to come to you for this one around, I guess we were saying CVs aren't working. And Guy, what do you think the most common challenges or guesswork traps Catawiki was facing when you were relying on resumes to identify real top talent?
No, yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, there's a bunch of, in any role, I think there's a bunch of traps. In a role like customer service or sales, there are a lot focus on soft skills, even more, right? Because there's no technicality or skill or particular skills or degree, whatever, that you can look for, although we try to avoid that as much as possible. But the bias that you have, there's always is going to be integrated. Not only the bias for the type of person that you are, the degree, the school that you went, if this person speaks the same languages, you come from the same background, right? There's always this unconscious bias that pop up, but also even related to the CV, right? I may look at a CV and be like, oh, I love this CV, right? I think it's quite beautiful. I think it's quite well done and quite well presented. And Anna may look at a CV and be like, no, I don't like it at all, right? So there's always a subjectivity attached to it. That you need to try to mitigate as much as possible. And I guess TestGorilla, as a tool, help us with that. Other tools and ATSs and systems, obviously, as well. But it's trying to be, looking more than just the CV. And particularly in customer service, you see the most random CVs in the world. So you need to look past that, right? Like I remember talking with a few of my team members that were not doing customer service, right? And they would look at these CVs like, oh, I wouldn't, move ahead with this, right? And then for us, like, this is a normal CV for customer service. You need to adapt to that and look past it, right? So yeah, I think that those unconscious bias are a bit of a challenge always, yeah.
Definitely. And I think in this world now, all the CVs look the same, right? They're written by one version of an LLM and they're all saying the same thing to get through some of those filters. So that can't be the only solution.
Right? Like people are going to use AI, like we use AI, right? It's like you're not gonna stop people from using AI, particularly on their CVs, right? So you have to find a way to look past that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that sort of moves us nicely onto our next point around what are the skills or particular things that you are looking for, looking past that CV. And Anna, I kind of want to take this one to you really can you just walk us through your process? So when you're building out an assessment for some of these roles, or what specific skills and assessments really help align with the kind of actual day-to-day requirements of a role? Can you talk us through that process of how you go about that?
Sure. For sure. I think the first part of selecting a specific skill that we want to assess is, first of all, look into the actual job description, just because we need to identify the core tasks, the recurring responsibilities they have, what kind of outcome we want to measure as well. So that kind of help us to look into the technical skills and capabilities someone needs to have to do their job, so to perform well in the position. But then I think more importantly, we look into two kind of different skill sets. First would be the core skills, and these are based on Catawiki's values. They reflect what we expect someone to show up as within the organization. And it's less about what you do and more how you do it. So the core skills are more in terms of alignment culturally within the company. But then, of course, we have functional skills that we tailor not only to a job role or a job family, I would say, but to a job level as well. So we have functional skills depending on which level you're at within the same position. And that, I would say, it's also really important. So basically, we look into first required technical skills, then behavior skills that also align with Catawiki, and then not so technical skills, but also job-related skills. And this ensures that we're not either over-assessing or under-assessing candidates, because we are trying to test what truly matters within each position and for their performance within each specific context.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really requires real great collaboration with the hiring manager and the team or the role you're looking to fill. Do you think that relationship between your sort of recruitment team and department heads has evolved since you started using more data-driven assessments?
Yeah, I would say it has for sure, because it changed between like subjective discussions to evidence-based conversation. So previously, and if there are any other recruiters hearing me, I mean, they've listened to a gut feeling many times. So I have this gut feeling on this profile is not the best fit. And I think having data-driven assessment kind of reduces not only biases, as Guy was mentioning, but also ambiguity around the candidate's fit, and makes also feedback discussions more concrete and less opinion driven. And it also, a major one is, I think it shares accountability for hiring quality. So we share this accountability, this ownership on the process of the people that we hire. And it shifted the focus from why is this process not working to what can we do to tailor the process better to what we're looking for. So it's more of a common effort. And recruitment is seen less as like a coordinator for candidates and more of a strategic partner as well.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Anna. Guy, did you have any additional thoughts on that one?
No, I mean, just my experience in itself and using it, right? Before discussions would follow through, like, again, going on the CV, where they worked before, right? All of these little things, right? And suddenly, slowly but surely, let's say, discussions pointed more like, so how is the score on this person on English level, right? Like how is this person performing in terms of like when a candidate was rejected, for example, like how did they perform on this customer service assessment or whatever, or even in the recruiter interview, did you flag anything, right? So it's much more about the performance and the skills than the gut feeling or the bias, right? Of the CV in itself, right? So I think that's a positive step.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think being much more data driven in that respect also allows you to measure the success and I guess your hiring blueprint. So at Catawiki, are there any sort of metrics or outcomes that indicate that this more data driven approach is working or not working?
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, we have a general metrics that we always try to achieve each year, right? So even on a monthly basis, and we measure them. I think a few important ones that are general, everyone will recognize here, like time to hire or time to fill. For example, we try to keep it time to hire in CS as short as possible. This year we finished 19 days, something like that, right? Which is positive. We try to keep it even shorter for like 15 days in customer service. For obviously other roles, maybe 30 days or a bit more for tech roles, for example. But then you also have offer acceptance rate. That was a big one, right? Like offer acceptance rate in CS due to high volume hire was quite low. right? Because you were hiring quite fast, right? And the rapidness can be the enemy of perfection, right? So it was always tricky, and then you would get to offer stage if things were not aligned, and that improved. And for example, end of last year, we ended up around 90% offer acceptance rates, and I think the most important one for us is quality of hire. So I remember when I joined, quality of hire in CS has been, was at its lowest, right? And we were able to increase our quality of hire. I don't know, 2 points or 3 points. I don't know exactly, but our goal is to have a 7.5 out of 10. In November, we got a 7.4 for the intake in November. Now, in general, I think we are around 6.1, but when I started, it was like 5.3, right? So we increased that slowly in changing our process and using TestGorilla as part of it, right? Like we use TestGorilla, we measure how TestGorilla was being used as well. We changed the assessments in TestGorilla to better predict what we were looking for, and we're actually constantly doing. We just had a meeting today about that, right? So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of metrics we use. These are like the main ones. I think one important one that Anna has talked about the other day as well, is also the number of the ratio of interview to offer, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like when I was doing CS was around 3-1, right? For interviews, and then with Anna, I think it was actually 2-1, so increased even. So I think those metrics are all important, right?
Yeah, no, completely agree. I've been in the customer success, customer service world for 16, 17 years. And I definitely think in that real customer service space, the actually attrition rate is so high and you're having to get candidates through as quickly as possible. So yeah, can really relate to those. There's a question I've just spotted coming through from Leanne Williams, where she's asking, so you talked about you've got a score for your quality of hire.
Yeah.
How are you measuring that, or what feeds into that?
Yeah, I mean, also just circling back a little bit on the attrition, we also were able to lower the attrition, right? And we had
Interesting.
almost 50%, 40%, something like attrition, and then we lowered that to around 12, 50%, even 10 in some months, right? So we got
Wow.
lower as well a lot, and I think that was also an important metric. The quality of hire, how we measure it. There's a 3 months questionnaire that we send to hiring managers. In that, how is this person performing? We also measure what we call the right fit score, right? Is this person the right fit for the role? And they have to evaluate it on a scale of 0 to 10, right? And that's how we measure both quality of hire and the right fit score, which is basically encompassed within this survey we send every 3 months. Our ideas for the future also actually to keep sending this survey maybe like after 1 year, after 6 months, right? To see if this person is still in a good hire, right? So yeah, that's how it's been increased. Like every 3 months, like we send this survey and we measure it. The right fit score, for example, for CS reached the 7.5 target that we wanted. We were quite proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And some of those stats you mentioned around the attrition rate are incredibly low, because I think in some customer service roles
Yeah.
that can go up to 70%.
No, yeah. And
So
that would be like the normal, right? Like I remember talking
yeah.
to people like, hey, 20%, like 7, like, no, but we have to be even lower, right? Like we have to get lower, and it's going. Obviously, there's a few months here and there, but normally, yeah, it's going down over the past year.
Amazing. Thanks both. I'm going to move us on a little bit into the world of AI, something that I'm very passionate about and love talking about. But really, this has really changed the scope of how we hire, who we hire, and I guess what we're hiring as well. And I'm really interested, Guy, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on when you're hiring, what are the AI skills that you're looking for? Now, we heard Isabel and Wouter in their conversation earlier around sort of AI fluency, and that being around sort of learning agility, curiosity, ethical judgment, creative thinking. And they were talking about how some of those skills will become more and more prevalent. But what does that mean to you, that kind of AI fluency? Do you resonate with those, or do you have different ideas on that?
No, I definitely resonate with those. Like how are they propagated or promoted within the company? I think it depends from company to company, but definitely resonate. I think for us at Catawiki is a lot about being able to use AI, but with a purpose for something, right? Like if you're using AI for the sake of AI, maybe you're losing more time than you're actually gaining, right? So the idea is like, why am I doing this, right? Or what am I trying to achieve with this, right? And what we look for in candidates is that, proficiency. I would say, like they were saying before, maybe proficiency is a bit too harsh, but that usage, let's say, or common usage, that's on a day-to-day basis, they're trying to achieve something with AI, and we do it on different levels for different departments, right? Something is customer service or people, and then something more technical, for example, in tech, right? We try to see, and the idea is that not only can you use it, is not there to replace you, but there to add something, right? Like you have to be able to justify why did you use it. It has to be to make sense. So giving you an example, for example, in tech where we use a platform for live coding, they can use AI as long as they justify the use and they show the use. Like, what are the prompts they're using? How are they using it, right? And that part is also evaluated. Like, feel to use AI as long as you're able to explain it, right? And it's able to explain the logic behind it, right? And particularly for us, for mean people, being able to, provide a better candidate experience, provide better response, feedback to candidates, build entire design processes and so on, just speaking with AI and being able to debate ideas and then design a document or something to build a process has been kind of the usage that I've been doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And I think I know when I was joining TestGorilla, actually one of the scenarios was I had to analyze whether I agreed with a deep research document or not. And I thought that was a
Okay.
really great example of I still used AI like Notebook LM to kind of structure my thinking. But yeah, I love that idea of actually showing some of the thinking behind that. Um, and that really talks about, I guess, one of the next questions we had was around your philosophy on candidates using Gen AI. And it's fascinating. And definitely when I'm using some of the TestGorilla tools, sometimes it can be really obvious if they're sort of reading off an LLM or they're using tools there, but actually you want them to be able to sort of thrive and use them, but tell you how and why and the thinking behind that. Great, thank you. And really now just looking forward to 2026. I know as a leader, when I think and looking what I'm hiring for and kind of an AI first team and that AI fluency, that word that we've been talking about, 2026 looks completely different to what 2025 did. But for you at Catawiki and some of those roles, what are the skills that will be most important for you to hire for? And how do you think that TestGorilla is going to help you do this?
Maybe I can take this one. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, technical and role-specific skills for each position will remain the same, more or less, and we'll want to stay consistent in how we assess based on job requisitions themselves. But that's something that TestGorilla has been helping us out with for a long time. But now, as we look forward, I think the focus is going to be mainly on trying to evolve on the way we assess company values and cultural skills as well, such as the way we take ownership and drive impact, the way we are open to change and feedback, as well as our passion on Karawiki's mission as well. So I would say those are like our core competencies or skills that we look into, and we're going to try and change the way that we assess them. And we're looking to have it more formalized, I would say, and defined internally as our cultural framework is also changing. And TestGorilla will be a part of that for sure. As he mentioned, we were still today exploring what AI features we could implement, because we look into AI as a positive enabler, not a sole purpose or focus. But I think that if it's managed with being authentic and transparent during the process, it is going to be really helpful. So specifically TestGorilla, we're looking into AI supported question development and scoring,
Yeah.
also open-ended questions and video answer assessments. So that's kind of going to be the main focus, specifically to focus on the assessment of company values for Catawiki.
Yeah. Love that. And I think that there's almost like two ways that, so I think there's that when Anna, you were talking about the volume coming through and the speed to hire, that's where AI can support in some of the scoring. But also then when you look at that AI fluency and us embedding that into actually what is an AI fluent skill and how do I test for that skill rather than just using AI. So yeah, we're really excited to go on that journey with you. Um, Thank you both. I just want to say, I'm just getting to final time and just checking there's no questions. But yeah, just a really big thank you to you both and really sharing some of that. I do have to do a little plug for you guys. So I know you guys are
Yeah,
hiring. You've got
perfect.
multiple roles across
Well,
in
please
Lisbon,
help.
Amsterdam. Guy, do you want to do a little plug for
No, no,
yourself
no.
here?
Just saying, like, I mean, with Anna now in customer service, we're growing quite a lot in Lisbon in customer service, but also now in tech. I've been diving into tech. We're also been using a lot of like AI, how people can collaborate as well. It's really important for us that people are not only technically good, but they can collaborate with one another. And we have a bunch of roles open for Lisbon, for Amsterdam, and a few more roles worldwide for sales experts. So please just check our careers page. It's catawiki.careers.
I've just put it in the chat for everybody.
Good luck, Penny. Good
Careers. Yeah,
luck.
thank you. Roles. I see a question here about Catawiki with offshore Latam. We do have a few roles that are remote or offshore, particularly for what we call experts, that are people who create the objects in our marketplace, in our platform, and sales. Specifically for Latam is not a market that we've been exploring, something that we foresee in the future, maybe, hopefully. But you see a lot around Europe and Asia, a few as well.
Amazing. Thank you both. I really do hope in 12 months' time, maybe we'll host another little what did 2026, how did it pan out? What did it look like? And what does sort of AI fluency look for you guys now? So thank you for everyone. For the attendees, please head back into the Zoom lobby. There's actually a panel discussion being hosted by our VP of Engineering, Chris Newton, one of my colleagues. We've got our Director of Talent and Assessment Science in there, Ramina. I love to listen to what she's talking about, the science behind some of these skills. And she's also got the Head of People Intelligence and AI at Natera, Jason, and the talent lead at Primer, Tom Booth. So I think it's going to be a great, I think that is our final session potentially. So thank you for everyone for joining, and please head back to the lobby. Thanks,
Thank you.
Guy. Thanks,
Thank you
Anna.
so much, everyone.
Yeah, great event.
Thank you.